Hey there, gang. Something a little bit different today. Instead of unboxing comic books, we are going to be unboxing some toys, some new Megos. So if you like action figures, stick around. We're going to have some fun. Hey there, Bubby. Welcome to Shanghalla. My name is Duke, and this is a Toybox Titillation episode. And the teaser teased an actual unboxing because, teasing is its job. That's what the teaser does. But I already opened these like a month ago. I did this video, and it kind of sucked. It was kind of awful, and so I've decided to redo it. I sat on it for a while and decided that I wasn't going to do it at all, and then I was like, well, no, I'll redo it from scratch. So I kept the teaser. The box is gone. The packages are all open, so you don't get to see me opening any of the actual packages. But we are going to review these figures, these recent Mego action figures. They're not all new. They're new to me, but they're not new. Some of these are past waves, a couple of years old, maybe, such as this one right here, the creature from the Black Lagoon. And they're not all actually new to me. New. I got 3 figures a couple of months ago, and then 3 figures about a month ago when I did the video for all 6 figures. And like I said, it was awful. It sucked. Not the least of which because, I mean, as you know from my comic book videos, I don't have a camera, and clearly I don't have, fantastic lighting either. I mean, you come here not for the production values, but for my enthusiasm for the comics, the toys, the other things that I put on display here. And I do have a lot of enthusiasm for Mego action figures. We're going to have some critiques in this video, but I do love my Mego. Make mine Mego, as they say. But anyway, we do have 6 figures that we're going to look at quickly and kind of review. We do have the creature from the Black Lagoon. We have and Mego, maybe I should review first before I get into that. I should review, if you don't know what Mego is. Mego was the action figure company of the 1970s. And as a Gen X kid, I was a child of the 1970s. I loved Mego action figures. I lost all of mine in a house fire in August of 1980, and Mego itself only lasted another couple of years beyond that before it ran into some financial problems, went out of business, and only came back in like 2018. The company owner, Marty Abrams, secured back all of the copyrights and all of those kinds of things, the trademarks, and brought the company back in 2018. I didn't get right on board right away with the new wave of action figures because, frankly, 1, I couldn't afford it, and 2, they started out doing kind of weird action figures. The big thing when they first came back was like TV favorites, and they were doing like action figures of, Tootie from Facts of Life and Alice from the Brady Bunch, and things like that. I don't really need a Marsha Brady action figure. It's cool, it's neat to have, but it's not the kind of thing that gets my inner 10-year-old boy really excited. Since then, in more recent years, they've started to really focus on kind of what I call the 4 pillars, the 4 ends of the table there, if you will, that support the company. They have the horror line or the monster line. They've got the DC action figures, the DC heroes, Star Trek, and Planet of the Apes. And these were all, excepting the monsters, these, Star Trek, Apes, and superheroes, were really the 3 pillars on the stool from the 1970s. Now here we've got 4 with the monsters. And just a quick look at the other figures we're going to have here in this video. We've got a Geordi LaForge and a Deathstroke. But anyway, as I kind of clear the table here, as I say, in more recent years, they've really got away from those TV favorites, probably because they didn't sell that well, frankly, and have focused on these lines, which I'm super into. And I'm sharing with you because I think maybe you would be into them as well if you're not if you're not aware of Mego. The figures themselves are super reasonable. They're like, depending on where you get them, you can get them anywhere from like $15.99 to $19.99. I get all of my figures from a place called ZLC Collectibles, ZLC Zulu Lima Charlie. I think they're located in New Jersey. And the reason that I get them there is they have discounts on so-called damaged packaging. Like this one, because of this bend here that you can see, this was $2 off. Instead of $17.99, it was $15.99. Well, I'm going to take that savings all day long, every day, because I'm going to damage the package anyway, because I'm going to open it up. You've heard me say on my comic book unboxing videos that even though I make my living as a comic book reseller, buying and selling comic books, and I totally get and understand the point and purpose of companies like CGC and other grading services that, encapsulate that comic book in the plastic, what we call slabbing, once it's been, professionally graded, air quotes there, because I grade comic books for a living, but they are supposedly the professionals. But anyway, I get that, I understand it, but for me, personally, as a collector, I have no use for a slab comic book. My personal collection is close to 30,000 comics, and I don't have a single slabbed issue. And so for me, mint on card, it's kind of the same thing. Just like a comic book is no good if I can't actually read the thing, a toy is no good if you can't play with it. So these people who are all mint on card enthusiasts, I'm a little frustrated with, because to me, again, the whole point is to be able to play with toy. So I take either an X-Acto knife or like this, a paring knife, and I will cut around 3 sides of the bubble on the Kresge card and then kind of open it up like a book. I'm trying not to rip the paper, but you can see here, occasionally I do a little bit. I do save the packaging, but I do like the figures out loose. I don't have, like great giant hours-long battles like I used to when I was a kid with my action figures. But I use them, as you know, as kind of mascots in my comic book videos and things like that. I'll have them on my desk and, pose them. So, yeah. Again, I open them. A lot of people don't. Most people don't, frankly. Since Mego has come back, it has really catered to the adult collector, to the point where even on the packaging, the first few waves, they're up to about wave 15 now, but the first 4 or 5 waves or so, this said 8+ as sort of the age range, and there's somewhere around wave 5 or 6 they changed to 17+. I don't know why. There's virtually no difference between most of the action figures. Some of them do come, like with the Geordi here, they come with small pieces, like we've got a small phaser. And I guess that's a choking hazard, so maybe that's why they changed it. But part of it, too, is just to cater, I think, to the adult collector. We'll talk about that more as we go along. But to my mind, Mego should be mass-produced for kids. That's, to me, that's the market. They should be available in, toy sections and things like that. Unfortunately, where you find them in the Walmarts and the Targets when they're available there is with the collectibles, like the Funko Pops, in the electronic section, which is not someplace I think an 8 or 9-year-old kid would see it and scream, "Mommy, I want that." That's kind of an adult area, more or less. And so most of the figures, I believe, are limited to 10,000. Some of them, like the Deathstroke we're going to look at, that was an exclusive, previews exclusive, available only through previews to comic book shops, and that was limited to 5,000. But I think these should be mass produced. What 8 or 10-year-old boy is not going to love this? And I got to tell you, taking this out of the package, this creature from the Black Lagoon figure, and I think this was like wave 12 or something like that. This is maybe my favorite figure. I've probably got 10 or 15 figures now since they've come back, and I do love this. This is really cool, and it seems to me that this I have been an advocate for doing the Croft characters, Sid and Marty Croft, as action figures and as comic books, and that's a pretty easy sleeve stack. You're just changing out the head, the hands, and the feet. You could do a sleeve stack pretty easy just based on this, maybe even using the same costume and this same kind of plastic molding here. You can see they've got some heavier pieces sewn onto the costume to simulate the different fins and whatnot here on the creature. So this is just a really cool figure. My inner 10-year-old would have just absolutely loved this figure, especially because you could use him as an adversary almost against anyone. He can fight He could fight. He could fight Shazam there. He could fight Star Trek. You could even have him fighting apes. He's a multi-purpose adversary. So that's pretty cool. And he just looks cool. The eyes are neat. I think that's a great figure. The only real criticism I have of the newer Mego bodies, and we're going to talk about the new bodies, but the new ones since they came back in 2018, they initially started out replicating what was called the Type 2 bodies from the 70s. He had two different body styles back in the 70s, the very early 70s, the first few waves of figures that had like metal rivets for the joints, and then the banded, what they call the banded bodies, that had plastic rivets, and the arms and legs are held together by rubber bands inside the body. That's what holds everything on. But I find that with the newer bodies, these elbow joints, when you raise the arm up, it tends to pop the shoulder out of joint, and you got to kind of put it back in. And so with this creature from the Black Lagoon figure here, because it has this molded piece that doesn't really come off easily. See, here's where the costume would open up. A little bit of Velcro. Back in the 70s, that would have been a button, but Velcro now. It's not easy to get the arm back in. But other than that, that's really been my only complaint about the new figures. The packaging's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty basic, but I mean, it certainly gives the idea. It's part of the horror line. The back, you got a picture from the movie, which is like almost exactly. I mean, how exact is that? Little write-up about the company. I think that's an older picture of Marty. I don't think that's a current picture. I think Marty's in his late 70s now, maybe early 80s. The sculptor, Sean Sansom, who, I assume did the head, probably the hands and feet too. The seamstress, Rachel Baker. I don't think that Rachel sewed every suit, even all 10,000. These are made in China. I think that probably these were mass produced somehow, but she must have made the first one, the template. This one, you can see the seam here, the stitching. So it is starting to come apart a little bit, and I haven't really played with this one really, all that rough. You can see over here it's a little more together, but over here some of that stitching is starting to come apart a little bit, starting to stretch. So that's just a minor quirk as well. And then I don't know, it says freelance Jason Young. I don't know what Jason actually did for this, but this is pretty cool. I do like this figure quite a bit. And I think you might like it too. I think there's a few left on ZLC in the damaged packaging. You can probably still find it in some places. But again, where they only produce 10,000 or so, it's sold out in a lot of places. This did come also, by the way, in like 3 versions. This is the dark green. Then there was a lighter green. And those are kind of variations of the same one. I don't think they were necessarily intended to be variants. But there is a black and white one meant to replicate, the black and white movie. There is one where he's all in gray tones here. Certainly I like the green one better. And this is the dark green one. So that is pretty cool. I like that one. Going then to the other 70s mainstay that they've brought back. This is Cornelius. That's the character Roddy McDowell played in the movies. And I love here, like how even in a mask, you can tell that's Roddy McDowell. Now, maybe you're young enough you don't know who Roddy is, but that's pretty cool, I think. And here it says Consultant Dr. Mego, which is, I think if you go to megomuseum.com, that's where you can find Dr. Mego. Same sculptor, same seamstress. I guess seamstress is kind of a gender-specific term, right? I'm surprised people aren't upset about that. They categorize this as movies as opposed to Planet, but Planet of the Apes is really pretty much their own line. And that's pretty nice packaging here as well. So I like that. And I really couldn't even tell why this was considered a damaged package. I think I did this little rip down here when I opened it. Again, you can see where I opened it. It might be this bend up here, which to me, the mint on card enthusiast, because I could see this easily being, on a peg in a department store or something, and having, a little bit of a bend here and not being that uptight about it. But the mint on card enthusiasts, they demand that be absolutely flat and square, because I guess they think it's going to make it worth something down the line. Again, I don't really, as with my comic books, I buy for what I enjoy, what I want, what I'm going to read, or what I'm going to, you know, enjoy having around, not what I think I can resell for. And that's been an unfortunate, and we'll talk about that more in a bit. That's been kind of an unfortunate focus of Mego since they came back, is focusing on the resellers, the adult collectors, the people who want limited editions, who want absolute mint on card, and freak out if it's bent in the slightest in any way. But this Cornelius figure is pretty cool. I love the suit. I love kind of the fur here. He's molded in brown. He bends nicely. I love the little booties. Yeah. So, yeah, I just think that's a cool figure. Really cool. And Mego has really expanded the line, the Apes line, since they've brought it back. They've recently come out with some of the human characters from those movies. Your Brent and Taylor and whatnot, as well as Zira and Nova and the other things. So one of the issues that I have, though, is they started about a year and a half ago, maybe. I forget exactly how long ago. But Mego did this exclusive partnership with Topps, which kind of pissed me off. Because again, it was focusing on the resellers, the people who are really into the limited edition collectible, like they think they're going to buy a house with one of these one day. And the thing with the Topps figures is they were only available for a week. You had to pre-order them that week it was available, and they didn't tell you what was going to come out the next week. So I did not partake because I didn't want to buy two. I couldn't afford it. Basically, I couldn't afford to buy two figures having no idea what was going to come out the next week. So maybe they release a Brent or a Cornelius or something. But the next week, it's something from the Legion of Superheroes. I would have wanted more, but now I can't afford it because I already bought two figures. I can't afford 2, 4, 6, 8 figures a month. So I was really upset that you could only order the figures for that 1 week with no idea what might be coming next down the line. I did not like that at all, and I refrained. I did not order any of those figures. And apparently, I have seen online from different places that people have had a lot of trouble with those Topps figures, getting them. Of course, you have the people who complain that they don't arrive, mint on card, the cards are bent or whatever. Some issues with some of the figures, and also just late. Like you pre-ordered, so you were committing your money like 3 or 4 months in advance anyway, and then like a year later, and they still don't have the figure. That was a problem for a lot of people. But they have since, I think Cornelius was one of the Topps exclusives, but they've changed the costuming slightly and released it in a mass produce. And I think all of these figures from here on in are going to be ones that were initially Topps exclusives. Now they have a version. Like this Shazam is basically a variant. And I don't know if I could tell you exactly what the difference is between this and the Topps exclusive. This looks pretty cool to me. So I don't know exactly what the difference was. And so there are some people pissing and moaning because, well, I ordered my Topps exclusive thinking that was going to be a one-of-a-kind. And it was kind of pushed as this is your only chance of getting this action figure. And then they come out with like some slight costume variant through just the regular line. And some people are pissed. I kind of get why they're pissed. I get it, but I don't care. Because again, I'm not one of those freako resellers. I just want to have the action figure. And if it's a slight variation, but I can actually get it, then that's okay for me. So I like this. I do like this Cornelius figure. I like that quite a bit. And that's pretty cool. The Geordi LaForge, I think that was also an exclusive. He comes with the Next Generation style phaser. As I noted, it doesn't quite fit in his hands. You can't quite get it in there. So it's more or less useless. There are some people who will tell you that if you heat up the hand a little bit, you can bend the thumb back in order to get that in there. But I don't know. Because the other thing is, if you can get it in there, you kind of have to, like, he has to hold it like gangsta style, in order to get off a shot. It doesn't really hold quite right, but that's okay. My kid brain would not have been, I would have been pissed off I couldn't make him actually hold it, but I probably would have done as a kid something I wouldn't do now, which was to try and bend that thumb enough so it would fit in there. But ultimately, I probably would have taken off the belt and lost the phaser before too long anyway. But the Geordi figure looks pretty good. I think, I'm forgetting the actor's name. Probably not an easy sculpt to do, but I think it does look like him quite a bit. So that's good. The costume is great. They do replicate the original from the 70s. The Star Trek figures were known for having the boots molded as part of the body, as you see here, as opposed to being, just a removable plastic boot. In theory, I could take that off, but I'm not going to. In part because, and we'll talk about the stiffness of these figures later, but I don't want to break them. That's the new 26-point figure. But anyway, these 14-point of articulation figures, the Star Trek ones are actually kind of 13-point because the ankles don't bend. That's molded right in there. But that's part of the retro cool of it. So I like that. And I think they did a really good job. The collars may be a little high, but I mean, not a problem. I like that. And I do like that the emblem here is a little piece of plastic that I guess is stitched onto the costume somehow. Initially, back in the 70s, those were stickers, and invariably they would come off. I mean, it's hard to find a vintage figure with that still on it. The adhesive, even when it wasn't like rubbed off by the kid and lost, just with age, the adhesive comes off and those tend to disappear. But that's pretty cool. I really do like that. I do really like that Geordi. And I can show you. I showed you the Cornelius. Where's the Geordi here? The Star Trek packaging is really pretty basic. Don't really love it, frankly. Oops. Let's put the. Whoops. There went my lights. Let's put this phaser back in. Try not to lose that. It actually looks like an iron. It looks like a dust devil, frankly. Geordi out cleaning the Enterprise, cleaning out the engine room. But what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought there. The packaging I don't really love. And it says sci-fi instead of Star Trek as sort of the line. It should just be Star Trek because Star Trek is its own line. And they've done now figures from pretty much everything. They've done original Trek, and this is since Mego has come back. They've done original Trek, Next Generation, DS9. I think they've got some Voyager figures coming out. I don't think they've done any Enterprise yet. They have done Discovery. Who cares about Discovery? And they have done some Strange New Worlds. But the packaging here for the Trek figures pretty basic. You got a Picard up here. Does say the Next Generation. Does say choking hazard, small parts, not suitable for children under 3 years. But it's got this, 17 plus, which I don't get. Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge. Why can't I think of the actor's name? That's going to piss him off if he sees this video. He's going to be like, I was on so many things. How do you not know who I am? Kuta Kinte. God damn it. And it's just, it's a photo on the back. In the same basic one. Freelance here, Jason Young. The sculptor, Shonda Mesta Etkin. That's quite a name. And then Rachel Baker on the seamstress again. And let's look at the Worf. Here's the packaging for Worf. Where'd Worf go? Oh, he's over there. And again, kind of basic. Whoops. Get over here where I belong. And just a standard photo. Nothing really exciting about the Star Trek packaging. And maybe that's by design. I know that, Mego has to deal with the licensor, that they don't really have a lot of options. I do like the Worf. The head is a little big, and that's been a problem with some of the figures, particularly the early DC heroes, the Superman and the Batman. The heads were a little big for the bodies, but Worf had a big head anyway. I think the actor, Michael Dorn, I can remember his name for some reason. Why can't I remember your name? Anyway, the actor had a big head, and then once you put all those prosthesis in the hair, your Worf had a big head, so that kind of works. This is his. He's in his Deep Space Nine costume or uniform, I should say. I think the Topps exclusive might have had the Next Generation suit. I love the stash. A stash. The sash. He probably does have a stash. Some Klingon Klingon ganja. It would be cool if he came with a batleth, but he doesn't. But he does have the sash, at least. So that's pretty cool. I like the costume. I like the figure. I have no complaints about Worf. I'm really happy with the Worf. And again, I got him for $2 less because I bought him through ZLC because the package was, in theory, damaged. Now we're going to move on to the two newer figures, and these are ones that were, again, initially Topps exclusives, although some of those other ones were too. But these are done in the new 26-point articulation, which I don't think I like. And you might be like, oh, wow, there's more points of articulation. That's better, right? Well, a couple of problems. It makes it more posable, but more posable does not equal more playable. And with these 26-point articulations, they're actually smaller. The figures are a little smaller. They're supposedly 8-inch action figures, but you can see here, if I hold them back to back, you can see that, the Worf is taller. Even Geordi, I think, is a little taller here than the Shazam. You can see, I think you can see that. So that's an issue. It's a good-looking figure. It's a beautiful head sculpt. I mean, that really captures the C.C. Beck Captain Marvel. But the hands are smaller and more delicate, and the body itself is smaller and more delicate. And more points of articulation really means more potential points of failure. And so, again, more posable does not necessarily mean more playable. I think these 14-point figures are better for kids, and as I said at the beginning, I think these Megos should be made and marketed towards kids, not towards adult collectors. I can see doing some exclusives, but by and large, these should be toys for kids. If there are some aging fanboys like myself who can't bring themselves to outgrow them, well, so much the better for Mego's bottom line. But they should be making these, marketing these towards kids. And I guess, you could be like, well, kids, what do kids know about Star Trek, The Next Generation, or even Star Trek at all these days? But I think just, some of these, and I think it's why they do so well with the monsters, some of these are just, well, I was going to say it's Universal, but this is technically a Universal movies figure. But just some of the sculpts are Universal. I mean, any kind of monkey man, the kid doesn't have to know anything about Planet of the Apes, and he's going to think that's cool. And it might lead him to the movies and then lead him back into wanting more of the action figures or whatever. And something like this, like Shazam, even if you don't know anything about the character, you see this on a shelf or whatever, it's pretty cool. But the problem is that the 26-point figures, they're bandless bodies, and so the arms they click into place. They don't have the same, and maybe you can even hear it clicking. I don't know. So it's a less natural flow of movement for kids playing with it, and it seems to me that it's also probably more prone to breaking, to have it click into place. The other problem is it might as well be 0 points of articulation, because a couple of these figures, I've seen this online, lots of people making this complaint, and it's true of both of these 26 points I got. The upper body is so stiff, it might, like I said, it might as well be 0 points of articulation. I mean, if most people who keep it mint in card and never open it, they wouldn't even know this, right? But you can't bend any of these. You have to take his costume off and really kind of work it back and forth. So you couldn't just give this to a kid right away. You'd have to, as an adult, take it out of the package, take the costume off, and kind of play with it a little bit to get the joints moving. And even so, they still don't move, and that hand doesn't really move. You got to really play with it. They're really, really, really super stiff. That's a problem, I think. So one, you've got the more points of articulation, which is more potential points of failure. Two, it's a slighter, less robust figure. And three, you can't even move at least the upper body part. The legs come out of the package kind of bending okay, but still don't have quite as much movement as you would think they should have, being 26 points of articulation. So I really don't love these figures as much, frankly. And then the other thing too, and you can't see it here, maybe I can find a photo that I can throw up, but the original figures, the banded bodies, had like a ball joint here, which covered the entire waist, and allowed him to do all kinds of things. These newer bodies, the upper body and the lower body is connected by like a post. So it looks, the figure looks weird as hell if you take the costume off. Not that, like, Not that you necessarily want to get all your figures naked. Maybe you do. I don't know what kind of kid you are, but it just looks more delicate to me. Again, it seems more prone to breakage, where instead of this big ball joint right here, it is instead this thin little post. And yeah, I don't think that's not great. So this is a nice looking figure, but I mean, you can pretty much, all you can do with him is just pretty much stand him there. That's about it. You can't really do much with him because you can't really move him. And again, he's more slight, he's more delicate, he's smaller. It's a less robust, less playable figure. This is pretty much capitulating to the collector market, to the limited exclusive people. So that's unfortunate, I think. And here's the packaging that he came in. It's, you know, there's no line up here. It does say Justice League. You got a standard. I think that's a Jose Luis Garcia Lopez figure. Here you go. Back looks, you know, kind of basic, but that's okay. World's Greatest Mego Heroes. Now, Mego has started up again with their 70s tagline, which is World's Greatest Superheroes. And we can talk about that as well. Coming this fall, they are reproducing some of the original figures from 1972, the Batman and Robin with the removable cowl, removable mask. They're doing Superman and Aquaman. They've already had all of those figures recently, but they're redoing them in their original 1972 sculpts to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the company, or not of the company, but of the World's Greatest Superhero line. And there are going to be some figures. Shazam is part of that line as well, so there's going to be another Shazam figure, and also what they say, Aquaman, Green Arrow is in there, and then Green Lantern, who never had a figure in the 70s, so that's righting a wrong. And there's also a Flash. They've come out with a Flash in the last couple of years, but there's going to be a new Flash in that as well. The other thing that excites me about that line is that they're coming in boxes. The original window boxes. Well, the original boxes back in the very early 70s didn't have a window. It was just a straight box, and so they started doing them with a window because the problem was people were opening the packages to look at the figure. So with a window, you can actually see the figure inside the box. But then with the box, you can just open it. So your packaging can always stay, in theory, mint. You don't have to like cut it apart like this to get into it. So I would like to see Mego do all of their figures in whatsy-futsy there, the boxes. That would be super cool. But the problem there is that I don't know, they probably won't. But I would think you would be able to do, like, you know, because for the stores that have the pegs, and they want to put them on the peg instead of, you know, the boxes on a shelf, which is the reason these came about in the first place in the 70s. You should be able to attach like a little peg holder to the box, and then you could hang the box off the peg as well. But I would love it. The figures all came in window boxes going forward. The problem is that the 50th anniversary figures are apparently going to be in the 26-point articulation, which I don't get that. Like, you're redoing the retro look, but in the new 26-point configuration, it is not usable, not playable, not a lot of fun. Speaking of which, here's the Deathstroke. And the Deathstroke, that center post on this one is like super loose, so he just kind of flops around like that. At least with this one, he's more solid. But here, he's like super loose. He's just floppy. So that's not cool. I can't get this figure to stand up on his own for the life of me. There's nothing I can do. The other thing is he's got these guns here, a gun and a knife, which strap around his leg, but they keep falling down to his ankles, making him look kind of stupid. He does come with a sword and a rifle with a little bit of a strap here, a little piece of string. But, you know, for your kid brain, it works fine. And these, I think the rifle and the sword are both taken from the G.I. Joe figure, Shadowstorm, Shadowhawk, whatever his name is. G.I. Joe came along after I was already into my teens. I never got as into G.I. Joe. And because also those figures were way inferior to the Mego figures. Same with Star Wars. But Mego did recently do an exclusive with Hasbro. They did some Ghostbuster figures and they did some G.I. Joe figures. And the rifle and the sword both come from that Storm Shadow figure. Although it's kind of weird. he's got like this, you know, his cartridge holder here and his grenades. He's got this thing on his back, which you would think would be to sheathe the sword, right? Except it's closed in the bottom. So unless you decide to cut a hole there, you can only stick it in about that far. Not a ton useful. And I've heard of some people actually cutting that so they can put that sword all the way in there. I'm not sure I want to do that. But again, this one, you can't bend him. You gotta get him naked, play with those joints a little bit. But until then, he can't really do anything. The arms kind of click into place when they move at all. You know, they click and stay stiff there. So I don't really love that. You can't mold it much. I do like the head sculpt. Not that there's, you know, much to a Deathstroke head, I guess. But anyway, I'm not quite in love. Yeah, and I don't mind that the belt is part of the fabric of this cloth costume. But he's got quite a package here himself, speaking of packages. And here is the packaging. And again, pretty basic. It doesn't even say, you know, Justice League or anything. And this was a Diamond Comics exclusive, Diamond previews. So this went out to the exclusive to comic book stores through Diamond Distribution, limited to 5,000. Well, now it's 4,999 if you want yours mint on card. And there's kind of the back, same figure there. So anyway, that's it. Those are my primary complaints. Yeah, I do love the Mego figures. I think they're awesome. I think some of these are some of my favorite figures that I have got since Mego has come back. But I don't really love the 26-point figures. I think there's a lot of problems there that I hope Mego can fix down the line. But otherwise, there you go. Group hug. Until next time, rather it's a comic book video or another video like this, goodbye, good luck, and please be good to each other.